In this lecture, we're going to execute our first PHP script. This means we'll create a PHP file, run it through the PHP interpreter, and view the output. The question is, how can we use the PHP interpreter? We're going to use a server for performing this job. Oftentimes, I find that beginners confuse web servers and the PHP interpreter. The job of the PHP interpreter is to transform our code into machine code. On the other hand, the job of a web server is to deliver files. To better understand, let's look at an example. In a real environment, we may have dozens of files. Servers may contain a mixture of HTML, CSS, and image files. In our browsers, we have the power to request specific files from a server. For example, let's say we wanted the about.html file. A request from the browser is sent to the web server. The job of the web server is to find the file specified in the URL. If a file is found, the file gets sent back to the browser. Lastly, the browser renders the file on the screen. Overall, it's a straightforward process. However, there's one problem with this process. Websites that deliver the same files to the browser are known as static websites. It doesn't matter how many times visitors refresh the page. They're delivered the same files. Nowadays, most websites are dynamic. Rather than delivering the same page, pages can be tailored to our users to provide a unique experience. Websites that generate unique content are known as dynamic websites. Web servers can be configured to process PHP files. For example, let's say our server has PHP files. In the browser, we can request a PHP file from the server. Our server searches for the file to deliver to the browser. So far, the process is very similar to static websites. Afterward, things begin to take an alternative route. Web servers don't immediately send the PHP file back to the browser. Instead, servers are capable of running the file through the PHP interpreter. We'll wait for the interpreter to generate HTML. Once an HTML page has been created, the file gets sent to the browser to be rendered on the visitor's machine. Understanding this process is absolutely crucial. PHP does not run in the browser. Servers are meant to execute and handle the output of a PHP file. Fortunately for us, we're using Replit. Behind the scenes, a server has been configured to deliver files. At the same time, if we request a PHP file, it'll be processed through the PHP interpreter. Let's try demoing this process. In the file tree, open the index.php file. PHP files must have the PHP extension. Otherwise, web servers will not run the file through the PHP interpreter. If the server encounters a non-PHP file, it'll automatically get sent to the browser without further processing. Inside this file, there may be initial code. It's completely fine to leave the file empty. We're not going to need the starter code provided by Replit. Now the question is, what kind of code can be written from within a PHP file? Believe it or not, we can write valid HTML code. All HTML features are completely supported in PHP files. After all, PHP files get transformed into HTML files. It only makes sense that HTML syntax is supported. For example, let's try adding a pair of h1 tags with the message, "Hello World." Original, I know, but just keep following along. After adding the h1 tag, we must refresh the preview by pressing the refresh icon. Make sure you're refreshing the preview, not the browser. If you were to refresh the browser, the entire editor gets reloaded. I know it can be annoying to have to constantly refresh the preview. There's a shortcut for forcing a refresh. On your keyboard, you can press Ctrl+S shortcut to save the file. For Mac users, this command would be Command+S. By default, Replit auto-saves your files. If you were to trigger the save action, the preview automatically refreshes. It's a simple trick that you should remember going forward. As you can see, our message appears in the preview. Cool, right? As a simple exercise, let's try creating another PHP file. In the file tree, create a new file called about.php. Once again, make sure the file has the PHP extension. Otherwise, our code won't be processed through the PHP interpreter. Next, Inside the about.php file, let's write a simple message to help us identify the file in the browser. So far, so good. Now the question is, how can we preview the contents of the about.php file? Our preview continues to display the message from the index.php file. To view the contents of the about file, we must update the URL. Unfortunately, this isn't possible directly from the preview. We must open a new tab to view this information. On the right side of the Web View tab, there's a button for opening the site in a new tab. Click on it. As you can see, Replit provides a free URL for previewing our site. At the end of the URL, add the following, about.php. After inputting this path, the contents of the about file are rendered. Voila! We've successfully created another page. You may be wondering, how does the server know to deliver the index.php file when a file is not specified? If I were to remove the file name from the path, the contents of the index.php appear. Strange, right? Well, not really. By default, most web servers are configured to deliver an index.php or index.html file to the browser if a file is not specified. This is why we're able to view the contents of the index.php file. That's about it. So far, PHP doesn't seem all that different from HTML. Don't worry, in the next set of lectures, we're going to get an opportunity to generate dynamic content. When you're ready, I'll see you in the next one.